All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus podcast presented by BuffaloPlus.com. As always, joined by Mike Catalana, Dan Fetes. I am Jenna Cottrell. My dog Rosie is also going to be in on today's discussion as well. All right, the Bills 4-0, a perfect start through the first quarter of the season. Josh Allen with an MVP caliber season so far. We're going to get into what Brian Daboll had to say about his offense, the strategy he has for it, as well as the bounce back effort we saw from the defense. We also do have to talk about some injuries to the Bills, though, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And also, we talked about Brian Daboll. Could he be a head coaching candidate as the season continues? All right, so Mike, I want to start with you. Josh Allen, once again, leading the Bills. They had a 30-23 win over the Raiders. They're perfect so far to start the season. I mean, I don't think anyone expected this type of start.
No, and I think it's in large part because they've been so dominant offensively. I mean, we looked at Sunday as almost an off day for Josh Allen. A year ago, that would have been considered a really good day for Allen. He hit a deep ball. He moved around. He didn't turn it over, right? That would have been a really good day. Now we're like, oh, okay, Josh didn't get 300 today. Something's wrong. I mean, he's raised that bar for all of us too. And they did play complimentary football for a lot of reasons. The defense eventually came through. But I would say in total, he's raised the bar. We didn't expect them to be 4-0. But when they were 3-0, all of us expected them to get there, if that makes sense. Like, they have increased our confidence in what this team can do.
Yeah, I expected them. They were just the better team heading to Vegas. But, yeah, I think Jenna makes the best point. I'm not necessarily surprised that they're 4-0. I'm just surprised that they're scoring 30 points a game. Look, last year they scored 19 points per game, really struggled offensively. The head coach didn't want to answer questions about his feelings towards the offense, if he was frustrated at all. Now, like, this offense is just having fun. Every single time that they need a play, for the most part, it has been the offense. Obviously, Josh Norman made the big play that seemed to get the Bills' defensive swagger back. He talked about how he summoned his inner TO because on the sidelines, the coaches were saying, somebody needs to go make a play. And he's like, well, I'll be the one that does it. But this is just an offense that, especially at the wide receiver position, 1 through 5, I would take up against any other team in the league. And we were looking at, Mike, I think you said it last year, that this was the worst wide receivers the Bills had since you've covered the team, which is a couple of years.
Yeah, this was the year before they brought in both Brown and Beasley, and that was just atrocious, right? And that's how Josh Allen started his career. And then you saw when he had professional receivers. And I think, boy, John Brown is the definition of that, right? Yeah. The guy does everything that's asked of him, can sort of play whatever role. But maybe being the number one guy is pushing it a little bit with John Brown. But look how good he is this year. Obviously, Diggs has made the big improvement for everybody. And I think Cole Beasley is playing better than he's ever played in his career. He was good in Dallas. He was really good for the Bills last year. But he is off to a spectacular start for the Bills.
And the Bills are scoring in so many different ways. And I think one of the things that has shocked me the most was looking back last year at 2019 and the games that they had. In 17 games, they only scored more than 30 points twice. And both of those times were against Miami. And you look at now 4 games through the season, they're averaging 30 points per game. Yeah. So I know last year a lot of people were very frustrated with Brian Daboll's offense, his scheme, seeing the team really struggled to score points. Obviously, Brian Daboll's still here again. So, Mike, is it just the talent around Josh, or what has this happened? What has happened? Because
what is happening?
There's not a lot of Brian Daboll haters right now.
No, it's a combination of things. It's the time they've had together. Buzzword.
Continuity.
Right. They've had that. Okay. It is Josh Allen improving in year 3. It's the talent around him. You say about the 30 points. I joked that I sent out a tweet that says, oh, ho-hum, it's another 30-point game for the Bills offense. And then I said I last sent out that tweet in 1992. So that's my joke about how long I've been covering the team, because you two have each had a little snippy little comment as we've begun this podcast to reference the fact that I started covering this team before either of you were born.
Yes.
But that being said, the way they run things offensively now, what I like seeing about it is it does remind me of the 90s in this way. Not only do they have talent, they dictate to the other team what they're going to do. We're going to throw it. we're going to throw it and you're going to try to stop it. It's not like, excuse me, but we're going to try to run it here. If you don't stop the run very well, we think we can get, no. They come out and say, we are coming at you. We are going to attack. We have the players to get it done. And they always say this with New England, and someday we'll see when they play it. Take away what we do best. Okay, well, the Bills throw it pretty well. You're going to try to take everybody away? That's what we're going to see.
And I think that's so great you make that point, Mike. And that's what I was saying on our Let's Talk Football live show that's on Thursdays on the 13 Win Facebook page, was the fact of this offense is now good enough where they don't need to be worried like, oh, the Rams are good at this, so they won't be able to do this. No, you go with your knockout punch. You go with your best weapon. They go with their best weapon. And the Bills are winning still on those things. This is an offense that should be able to do whatever they want to do on a weekly basis to some extent. Obviously, it's interesting. I always think about people are complimenting the Patriots for them being kind of this amoeba offense. They can run the ball really well the one time, then they can throw it the next week. That's because they don't have the talent that the Bills offense does. The Bills offense can simply show up, play their game, and make the defense, like you said, Mike, dictate to them. They're the ones that are pushing the envelope. They're the ones driving the game, which is what you see a Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City do. Like, even when they were getting stopped, and Josh Allen would drop back against Vegas, and it would be great coverage by the Raiders in the secondary, and then Josh would dump it off to Devin Singletary for 7 yards. Like, that was a good play by the Raiders defense,
right,
and the Bills offense was still getting 7 yards. Like, that is how many weapons, that is what they can do to you to spread you out. And that is just the progression that Josh Allen is making in his career, where this is weird to see 7 yards and be like, yeah, they kind of got stopped on a play.
I saw him make a play in the game on Sunday where I said, I think I mentioned to both of you guys, I was usually pretty quiet during the game, but I mentioned to both of you during the game, Josh wouldn't have done that before. He looked through his progressions, a simple little dump off. I think it was Singletary. They get yardage. And I'm like, that seems so easy. I mentioned the Patriots. How many times did we have to see Brady do that? Where he just said, it's there. I'm going to take those yards and then I'll go to the next play. That's what I like to see. Now, it's funny. We got a chance to interview the coordinators today, and I asked Brian Daboll about the contested catches. And I find this really interesting because, man, Sunday was like, there goes Beasley up to get one in the end zone. John Brown in the corner of the end zone, great throw, great catch. And then Diggs just goes up like the one he intercepted from Josh Allen earlier this year in Miami. He just went up and snagged the ball and basically laughed at the defender, which was
awesome.
Great. Yeah. And it's a combination of confidence that Allen has to say, my guys will go get it. Those guys have that he's going to throw it to them. And Daboll made a good point. We practice those settings. We put them in that spot, and they do that in practice. So then, Jenna, when they get in the game, like, they are confident that it'll work. They are confident they can make that play. And that makes a huge amount of difference for this team.
I mean, and you saw contested catch after contested catch. And I feel like we can say that throughout this entire season so far. And Brian Daboll, when he was talking today, talked about how aggressive they want to be. And I think it's fun to see. And Dan, we talked about this, but I mean, we're talking about the Bills imposing their game plan on other teams.
Well, it was interesting. Not only that, like I said, they're dictating the play. It's like a basketball team just being like, whether it was like the Lakers back in the day, like, we're just going to feed it to Shaq. Like, it doesn't matter if you have another big guy. Like, we're just going to give it to Shaq. He's going to dunk on you all day because nobody can guard him. Like, this is kind of what they've got rolling. And I thought it was interesting because everybody gets asked about Josh. He's the buzzword at all times. But Leslie Frazier gave like a really interesting answer to a question today of like, when did you notice a difference that this Josh would be different? And he said that in training camp, him and Brian Daboll, the offensive and defensive coordinators, got together to see what they could throw at him and to do as much as they could to confuse him in training camp and to try and disguise coverages and do all these different things. And they said that he passed everything with flying colors, and that was like a sign that he started to do it. And it never occurred to me that, like, yeah, the Bills offense goes up against a great defense every day in practice. Like, yeah, kind of, but like, yeah. I always remember, like, I think, like, when Josh was there early on, it was like, hey, asking Jordan Poyer, like, don't pick off Josh Allen. Like, don't ruin the guy's confidence. Now Josh is the one imposing his will, doing all of these things, and it's just kind of exciting to see. And to know that, like, all of this talk in training camp that I let go in one ear and out the other most of the times that's coming out of buildings, because the Patriots are playing today. Jarrett Stidham isn't playing. Brian Hoyer is playing over him, and we all know my take on Jarrett Stidham. But this is just everything that they have said. And Jenny, talk about this hot start. What this does to this mentality, they've come out and done everything that they wanted to accomplish in these first 4 games of the season.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't think – that's why I asked in the beginning, like, are you surprised? Only because, like, we knew this team was talented, but we also knew that the teams that they were going up against – this is my dog Red, is also talented. And I think that – and, like, obviously, you know, now this second part of – well, the second quarter of the season as we approach, you know, there's the Titans, there's the Chiefs, there's a lot of talented teams. The Patriots not too far behind that. I think this is when you're really going to see what this team is made of. But at the same point, I was impressed by not only the offense on Sunday, but also the defense and the effort that they had. It wasn't obviously perfect, but at the same point, I felt like yesterday you kind of saw the team take their pride back and be like, look, we know we can be a great defensive unit. And Mike, what did you see? Because I felt like while there were some plays, it was that bend and not break mentality.
Yeah, I think we got so used to the way they played defense last year, especially once they got things going. They gave up some runs, but for the most part, I mean, they were one of the top defenses in the league. It's hard to play defense in the NFL. All the rules are against you. Teams want offense. The league wants offense, right? But last year, the Bills were that team because they had to be. And right. I'm not saying they're giving up yards and points now because they don't care. It's the league is that way right now. And, you know, teams maybe have figured out a little bit of how to deal with the Bills. I really see these crossing routes as something the Bills struggle with in coverages. I mean, we've seen it. And teams have run the ball pretty well. Now, they did a good job this week on Jacobs, but in general, they've moved the ball on him. But I look at it and say, I think the way you play defense now in the NFL, try to get the stops, the 3 and outs, the punts, that's great. You got to take the ball away. You got to get them, as they say, behind the sticks. You want them 2nd and 15, 3rd and 17. You want it, make it difficult for them to keep drives going. Hold them to field goals when they get inside your territory. Like, those are all the things you need to do. Kansas City did it last year and won the Super Bowl, right? I mean, that's what works in the NFL. So Josh Norman brings that element to them. You know, they've gotten some plays out of the defensive line. But I think that's what's going to help them going forward, not sitting there waiting to get the 3 and outs and the punts all the time.
I think 2 things that are big here that you have to look at big picture. One, you almost need to forget how good the Bills defense has looked the last few years. Like you just kind of have to forget about it. One, because they were next to and playing on the same team as a really bad offense. Mike, it's like us standing next to a male model. Like, we're just not going to look as good. Like, I don't know what you're trying to say.
What are you laughing at?
The accuracy.
I thought that was a good comparison. Like we handle our own, but then all of a sudden we get next to the, you know, these male models and we're nothing. But this is the thing though now too, because these Bills defenses are going to face a lot more this season because of how good the Bills offense is. Yeah. Now teams are going to know they have to come into Buffalo and score 30 points to win. Before, Mike, you talked about it last year with the Eagles game. Teams would show up and know if they scored 20 points, could play conservatively, punt, and just pin the Bills defense back, they would win the game. That's no longer this case. So you kind of have to forget about how dominant the Bills defense was because it was a little bit overshadowed by teams playing conservatively because the Bills offense was so bad, right?
Well, and not only that, but look at the quarterbacks they played, right? Yeah. What's his name? Duck with Pittsburgh.
Hodges, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even Brady was not Brady, though he did play a really good game in Foxborough last year against them. And when they got the Titans, they got Mariota. You know, they got a lot of breaks in that way. Baker was really struggling when they played Cleveland. So you look at it that way. Now, okay, you got Tannehill. Hey, it's got Tannehill and Mahomes over the next 2 games. They played to go to the Super Bowl last year. Mahomes is the MVP of everything, right? And you still have Seattle on the schedule. You still have Baltimore on the schedule. Like, you have all-pro quarterbacks now you're facing. So even if the defense, like we talked about, the team can be better, but the schedule's harder, the defense could still be pretty good. but they're going to have to play really well because Mahomes doesn't do 20 points in a game. That's just not the way the Chiefs play.
But it's also across the board. I thought you said it best too, Mike. It's not just the Bills defense that's struggling. NFL defenses, period, are struggling. There were 6 games this week with the totals in the 50s for the betting lines.
Totals.
Yeah, in case you were following. 5 in 1 week for best bets. Follow along. We're getting really hot. That being said, yeah, but like you said, you're seeing 30-point games. And I think it was interesting. Sean McDermott admitted it today too, that without crowd noises, it does have an effect. And he even said a significant impact. One for offenses can go faster, offenses can change more plays at the line, and the defenses are losing that juice. That was the buzzword all last year with Buffalo, whether it was, Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, they brought the juice. They fed off the crowd. There's no juice this year. And Josh Norman.
You know what brings juice? Yeah. You know what brings juice? Bad quarterbacks bring juice. Okay.
That helps.
I'm watching the lousy first place Eagles play on Sunday night. It helps that Mullins is the quarterback and he throws a wounded duck interception for a touchdown. Like when you play like Duck Hodges, I get him in there twice. When you play like Duck Hodges, it's a little easier to beat that team, right? Now it's Ben Roethlisberger now that they're going to face. So that part really changes things, I think, too. And the realization that this is a tough game to play defensively because teams just offensively are loaded now. They are playing these spread offenses. They are running the field. And, I mean, that Cleveland-Dallas game was a track meet. Last one to score wins, basically. So that's the new NFL, and the Bills have adapted because the Bills are one of those teams now.
And there's less holding calls. The NFL is just more fun now.
Fun.
The no fun league is now more fun. That's something.
I will say I was really impressed with Josh Norman in his Bills debut. He said he was a little rusty when he got to the field, but when he needed to late in that game, punching out the ball, I mean, just being able to get the takeaway. I mean, what did you see, Dan? Because, I mean, he brought a lot of passion even after the game as well.
Yeah, he said that either it was going to be in the air or on the ground, he was going to try and make a play. So that was kind of what he had to do. But he didn't know how much he was even going to play. Levi Wallace goes down in the first quarter, and now Josh Norman's thrown really into the deep end. But Josh Norman can tackle a little bit. He showed that. He has the punch out of the ball. He said he wanted to be invited to the pizza party, that his team was all having a pizza party, and that he wasn't invited, so he had to kick the door down and get the invitation. He is that guy that the excitement kind of came from him in that fourth quarter. That was the biggest play. I know we're 4 games into the season, but Norman punching that ball out was the biggest defensive play of the Bills season so far. Yeah. The Bills offense was kind of struggling for a little bit, and then you also had Oakland getting the ball down to score, marching down the field, and he punches that out. And it was almost like when we saw Josh Allen come back to the sideline, there was a collective exhale. There was an exhale when Josh Norman punched the ball out and got back on it. The defense seemed to play more freer after that. They got a 4th down stop after a 3 and out. They really seemed to feed off that. And Sean McDermott talked about it today, that they started to show their personalities again. And Josh Norman has a big one.
Okay,
and it is awesome.
That's what I was going to say is I thought this was a hot take, but I don't really think it is. Josh Norman, bigger personality than Trey White.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Trey has a bigger personality, as a goofball off the field.
Yeah.
But while on the field, it seems like Josh Norman does enjoy the jawing.
And he does, and it was right before he made the play that he was jawing on the sidelines, and McDermott had to calm him down. And we all know back from his days when he and Odell had that beat down on each other during a game. Now, he's got to stay away from that part of it, but the guy can play. The guy can make plays. And it goes to my ideas. I'm a Levi Wallace fan for what he is for this team. He is a solid NFL player who gets picked on because he got Trey White on the other side. But he's not really a playmaker. He did have a pick this year, which was good. Now he's hurt. He's on crutches. He's week to week. But Josh Norman is definitely more of a playmaker. And I think that's what you need in the 2020 NFL.
Yeah, you bring up those injuries too, because now, I mean, the injury bug bit in Las Vegas. Levi Wallace with an ankle injury. Dan, what is the update with Matt Milano?
Matt Milano, kind of surprising. He kind of went out quietly in the second half of that game, and all of a sudden Sean McDermott gets asked about it. You need to be specific when you ask Sean McDermott who you want for the injury report. He just won't name people unless you ask for them. Matt Milano is week to week with his pec injury, so that means we can assume that he is not going to be playing on Sunday, and that absolutely puts his question, makes him questionable for the Chiefs in 13 days.
All right, can I have another bit of a hot take here? Since it's usually Dan's, but I'm going to have this one. Matt Milano is an excellent player. But does the moment of paying Matt Milano, do the injuries come into play at all?
Yes.
He's had a few. He gets nicked up.
A few?
Yeah, okay.
He's had a lot.
Yeah, and he is so good when he's on the field. But now you're not talking about playing a fifth-round guy in the last year of his deal. Now you're talking about paying him. Yeah. And in the NFL, you get paid for what you are going to do. And when he's on the field, I think he's one of the best cover linebackers in the league. And that's really a great element that they have. Now, I'm not saying this pec injury keeps him out a couple of weeks and then they've forgotten about him. No. What I'm saying is it's going to come into the mind of Brandon Beane and the team about committing to a guy because your best ability is your availability, and that's a problem. Yeah.
Permission to go there.
Can I have the hot take then? I'll go off of your hot take.
Yeah, I'm sure yours is going to be way hotter.
These injuries are a good thing for the Bills to get Milano cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay, that's if you believe that the team won't make a play because I believe some of these guys, if they get to the open market, they're gone.
That's fair. That's fair.
And that may be the case. But Matt Milano's got some pretty good tape out there. The question is, how much are you willing to pay?
Broken leg, concussions. It's soft tissue. It's concussions. He's had the entire gamut. They need the Big Ben diagram, and they can point to all the things that are injured or that has been injured on Milano.
He is a really good player.
I don't think he wants to leave.
I think he's the most important player on the Bills defense. I think he is the most important, not most valuable.
That Bills defense.
When he's on the team, it's different. On the field, it's different.
I'm just going to still say Trey White.
I think Milano is the unsung heart and soul.
Well, and I do believe, as we saw with A.J. Klein, I don't think they have another guy that's going to run and cover.
Yeah.
Like Milano does.
Milano
so to that point,
is just so good.
He does. I mean, he was out there on Jacobs during the game, and they tried to target it right away, and he was like, boom.
He guarded Cooper Kupp in the slot against the Rams. That's all you need to know about what Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott trust that he can do.
What's from the Cowboys, Sean Lee. Such a good player, that linebacker. But his problem was staying on the field. Still is. And it is, right? I mean, it just is, and it's a physical position, and I get it. But, again, we are fast-forwarding. You got 3 quarters of a season to play, and he may come back in by next Thursday and be fine and play the rest of the year, and everybody's happy. But I do think it plays into coaches and general managers'
minds. Hot takes.
2 hot takes.
Back-to-back hot takes.
Look at that.
Well, we should probably get to Josh Allen. He had the injury
him
on Sunday, going down on the shoulder. Coach McDermott says what did he say? He said he's fine?
He's fine. Fine can mean a lot of things, as we know. Jenna likes that word.
I don't like that word.
But it really is. I think he's okay. I think he'll play. I think he was sore. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be wearing a bit of a harness, I think, on that to protect his left side. And I don't think you want to see him take more hits there. You're going to have 2 games in a span of 10 days. So, yeah, is it a concern? Heck of a lot better than if it was on his right side where he's throwing the ball.
Yeah.
That was a classic job of another play. Josh had a few of those yesterday where it's the rookie Josh Allen backyard football play of throw it away, throw it away, throw it away. What are you doing? What are you doing? And then shovels it to Stephon Diggs, which almost was an amazing first down.
Actually.
And they're like, everybody's cheering, and then they cut back, and Josh's arm is like this as he's walking out the field, and you're like, that's not good. Because not only that, Josh took himself right to the locker room. Like, he didn't need anybody else. He said after the game that he knew it wasn't his collarbone, so he knew that. And he said that because it was on his left side, he wasn't overly concerned. It just had to play through some pain. But again, Josh.
Well, you know what it is, Dan? It's like when he fumbled in the Jets game and he was like, well, I was upside down. Yeah, Josh. Like in this case, you are falling sideways to try to flip a 7-yard play to Diggs. It's probably not smart. It's fun to watch until, what is it? It's all fun and games till somebody gets hurt. Well, He's the guy that got hurt. Now, his second one,
Dad.
No kidding. His second one was rookie Josh.
Yeah.
When he took that sack,
yeah, that was bad.
He had 5 chances to throw the ball away. Now, he had about 2 of those plays. The rest of his game was fantastic. Yeah. So, but I'm more concerned with the injuries to Josh than I am him just taking a bad sack during the game.
Well, and that's the Josh Allen experience, right? Like early on, Josh started the game 10 of 13. When I looked at you guys in the sports office, I go, he's 10 of 13, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns, and his 3 incompletions were 2 throwaways and a Stephon Diggs drop. Like that was how good Josh was again. And again, we talk about those contested catches. Josh says that the ball to Diggs late in the game was a little bit behind him. Still a really good throw to get it there. And then the ball to John Brown, which just an unreal catch, should have been a touchdown, was also an exceptional throw by Josh Allen too. Like we're talking about these contested catches, Mike, like you asked Brian Daboll about. You also have to throw a nearly perfect ball, and Josh is doing that too on top of it.
Yeah, he's been great.
He has been great. And Brian Daboll's been great. And I know we mentioned it earlier at the start, but look, we know the Texans has just fired Bill O'Brien. There's going to be, as always, some head coaching opportunities in the NFL. I mean, I think that Brian Daboll will absolutely be talked about. And Mike, you know the league a little better than I do also.
Yeah. Well, here's the couple things you got to remember. There's going to be a few openings. It looks like the Jets. We know the Texans are open. Atlanta's a good chance to be open. Detroit. Okay. And then you start saying, well, how is Brian Daboll looked at in the league? Is he looked at as a Patriots guy because he spent a lot of time there? Is he looked at as a Bills coordinator? So if you're the Jets, like Brian Daboll will be a pretty good guy to get because he knows the Patriots and he knows the Bills, right? You're going to go against Josh Allen. Is that the kind of guy you're going to go for? And then you say the Texans. Well, they just failed with Bill O'Brien, a Patriots guy. Mm-hmm. And if he's locked into that, the general manager of the Falcons is a Patriots guy, Dimitroff. Like, if that is looked at as a negative, I personally believe when he came to the Bills, that was looked at as a huge positive. McDermott has immense respect for Belichick and wants to know how to beat the Patriots. So, and likes that system, likes the way they operate. Who wouldn't want? I mean, the guy is a fantastic head coach, obviously. So that's kind of the way I look at it around the league. And that's who we think is going to be open at the end of the year. There's always a possibility of other ones too. Yeah. But I think it's going to take a pretty good position for Brian Daboll to leave. But, some of these other guys are a little younger. And no, I mean, I don't think he's just going to jump to say, yeah, just because I want to be a head coach. It better be a pretty good spot to leave if he's going to jump. I don't think it's going to be
Cleveland last year, Mike. The dumpster fire that was the Cleveland Browns. If he gets a head coaching offer, he's going to take
it. Okay. Things are pretty good in Buffalo right now.
I was going to say.
It's a head coaching job.
Yeah, you're right. And
like I know that we want to do like things are so great in Buffalo, but like people leave New England too, and people are like, that's a great deal. Like, you go on because it's a head coaching job. Like, I don't want to do that. Like,
but I'm saying he's a Buffalo guy. He's got 6 kids. He's living there. Like Eric Bieniemy hasn't gotten a job yet, and he's working with terrible. Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's coaching tree blows away Belichick.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you look around the league; those guys have succeeded.
It's the running joke here that we talk about that this is a Brian Daboll Stan podcast and a Brian Daboll Stan website and all those things. I can't say enough good things about Brian Daboll, the person, the coach, and everything like that. But I will say, I don't think Brian Daboll is a quick fix guy. And I mean that as a compliment, that to the Pagulas, to what Sean McDermott did, like this was not an overnight success here in Buffalo. Like they had to rework. That's why I think it's such a compliment to Daboll in the sense of he came in with absolutely nothing. He came here to Buffalo with such a empty cabinet of talent, of wide receivers, of options, of all of those things. And look at what he's done with time. That's a compliment to the Pagulas for staying with him. That's a compliment to Sean McDermott for not moving on from him. And look at what he has done building with a young offense. So I think that's a good thing. But if you're a team that wants something quickly to turn in a year, I don't know if Brian Daboll is necessarily that guy, but he has shown that he can build something with time.
Yeah, I think also, though, realistically, I think a lot of these franchises know they're in turmoil. And while they'd like to turn things around quickly, like even in Buffalo, I think Sean McDermott was kind of given a 4-year, 3-year type of plan. And if he made, and he did, Sean McDermott made the right choices to have the team go in the direction that it did. But I think Brian Daboll is literally coming from trust the process. And I think that he would absolutely have that type of mantra going forward for his next team, because I think that's the smart thing to do.
But
because
that's easier said than done.
Coaches
don't always get 3 to 4 years, like we say.
I agree, but I also think at the same time, with Daboll and his decision making and his ability to take a franchise and turn things around, especially with Josh Allen, with the Bills offense, I think that reputation gives him the availability to have a little bit more time.
Now, I would say this. I think Bieniemy would be a great choice for a team. But if you look at it, Andy Reid is still Andy Reid in Kansas City. And no matter how well these other guys have done, he is the quarterback guy, and he always has been. In Buffalo, the quarterback guy and the offense guy is Brian Daboll.
Yep.
So if I'm the Jets and I get the number 1 pick and I'm moving on from Sam Darnold and I'm bringing in Lawrence from Clemson, I want that guy as my head coach. And I'm not saying that Bieniemy wouldn't do a great job, and he might be. And he's probably got guys that he'd have on his staff. And I think hiring that guy is not going to be a mistake. But I'm saying is, if you're going to take Fields or Lawrence and you're going to get one of those young quarterbacks or try to rehab the guy you have, Darnold, with the Jets, I think Daboll would be a great choice. But again, we're partial to him. We know he's done a great job. The Bills don't want to lose him. But at some point, your Dan's point is if he gets that offer, he's probably going to take it because you don't know when it's going to come again. It could come this year.
Yeah.
It is. I think that Brian Daboll will absolutely get a head coaching job after this season. He will be gone from Buffalo. He has earned it in all of those things. And the Bills' offensive coordinator position will be a highly sought-after position, which is something I can't believe I'm saying for my years covering the Bills. Because you're going to get a quarterback on the rise. You're going to get weapons all around. There are going to be a lot of people that will be knocking at the door of the Pagulas and Sean McDermott to become the next offensive coordinator.
Unless it's Ken Dorsey moving up. But we're a long ways away from that, so.
Yeah,
but it's fun. This is fun to talk about.
We already got Daboll a job. We're replacing him and all that stuff. Look at that.
This is what other team reporters do.
This is insane.
I'm just saying, we're not used to this here in Western New York. All right. Make sure to subscribe to Buffalo Plus. As always, we appreciate all the comments. Any questions you have, any ideas for videos, make sure to send those in. Make sure to check out buffaloplus.com. It also
Don't plagiarize.
What'd you say?
Don't plagiarize. What's the guy's name? Let's call him out. Something Smith.
Don't give him the airtime.
Yeah.
TikTok guy. Stealer on TikTok.
Yeah, we don't want him. Make sure to check out buffaloplus.com. And as always, we appreciate you guys following along. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fetes, I'm Jenna Cottrell.